Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for joining. I'm so excited. This is Paula Connor here with Elevate Me Hub. I have some wonderful guests with me today. Dr. Christiane Northup, ND, is a visionary pioneer in women's health, a board-certified OB/GYN with more than 30 years of clinical experience, former assistant clinical professor of OB/GYN at the University of Vermont College of Medicine, a 3-time New York Times bestselling author of Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom, The Wisdom of Menopause, and Goddesses Never Age. In 2013, Reader's Digest named Dr. Northup one of the most 100 trusted people in America. In 2016, she was named one of Oprah Winfrey's Super Soul 100, a group of leaders who are using their voices and talent to awaken humanity. And in 2020, 21, and 22, she was included in the Watkins Spiritual 100, a list of living people that make a unique and spiritual contribution on a global scale. Internationally known for her empowering approach, Dr. Northup embraces medicine that acknowledges the unity of mind, body, emotions, and spirit, and teaches women to create health by tuning into their inner wisdom. After decades spent transforming women's understanding of their sacred bodies and processes, Dr. Northup now teaches women to thrive at every stage of life. As a business owner, physician, former surgeon, mother, writer, speaker, and, according to Miriam Ava, PhD, a rebel rock star and authority on what can go right with the female body, Dr. Northup acknowledges our individual and collective capacity for growth, freedom, joy, and balance. Dr. Northup has also hosted 8 highly successful public television specials, and her work has been featured on The Oprah Winfrey Show, The Today Show, NBC Nightly News, The View, Rachel Ray, Good Morning America 2020, and The Dr. Oz Show, among many, many others. Since March of 2020, Dr. Northup has worked on the front lines of medical freedom with her colleague, Kevin Jenkins, CEO of Urban Global Health, refers to as the civil rights movement of the 21st century. Dr. Northup, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to connect also back with Ontario. In my hometown of Ellicottville, New York, we have so many friends from your area. Because they come to the town to ski at Holiday Valley, but many haven't made it, obviously, in a couple years. So I feel very aligned with Ontario, Canada.
Thank you. Yeah, I love Ontario. I just want to mention too that we also have Seth Pruzansky here, who is the author of The Fight to Enlight, and Laura Eisenhower, who is known globally as a wonderful, are you a quantum astrologer, intuitive astrologer, Laura?
Yeah, medical astrology, intuitive astrology. I use it definitely as a tool and kind of weave it into the research that I present about exopolitical kind of topics and things related to DNA and our human potential and organic ascension and the planetary grid network and our mother Gaia.
Wonderful.
And connection to, yeah.
Wonderful. Well, we have a wonderful show for everybody today, but the first thing we're going to talk about today is the importance of taking back the control of our own minds, because stress and anxiety is unprecedented on the planet. Not only are we all exhausted with this whole COVID nonsense, but the amount of stress and anxiety most people are struggling with right now is unprecedented. And that was one of the reasons why I chose to write a Mind Your Mind course recently, which is so that people could take back. And so Dr. Northup, you've been teaching women for decades how to use their intuition and how to manage and be aware and listen to their own bodies. So I was curious if you could share a little bit about why you were so attacked way back when you did write the book, Women's Wisdom, Women's Bodies. Why the medical establishment had such a problem with you sharing that wisdom for your patients, clients, and other folks that were listening with you.
Well, think about it. If your profit model is dependent upon people's dependency, then you're not going to like it when somebody realizes they don't need you. So for instance, I was always a fan, much to the dismay of my colleagues, always a fan of those women who chose home birth. The reason is that when a woman gives birth and she knows that she did it, and she doesn't have a doctor handing her her baby 3 days later when she wakes up from scopolamine and Seconal, which is what I trained with, by the way, at the first year of my residency, they were still doing twilight sleep. And that was all those incredible hormones of affiliation, the bonds of affiliation, oxytocin, prolactin, would land on the obstetrician, not the baby's father and not the baby. The baby would be born kind of drugged. And then, the doctor would show up with the baby in her, here's your baby. Like somehow he had been part of the process. And so what women thought is, oh my God, my doctor saved me from my own body. All right. And, just remember all those movies that we've seen through the years, the woman and the man, they're on the deck of the ship. And she suddenly goes, John, the baby. And she falls to the deck, because, all the ways in which birth is depicted in the mainstream media until very recently have been so disempowering. I remember ER, the show ER, which I really kind of liked. It was, all the bad things that could happen in a year, they would put in a day. They'd bring people into the emergency room, and then they would do some emergency C-section in the emergency room, when the reality is, I swear to you, if you came in with a mosquito bite or a broken leg with your bone hanging out in the emergency room, they send you up to labor and delivery. Like nobody deals with any OB stuff if a woman is pregnant. But anyhow, so I saw all of that was going on that had brainwashed women into giving up control of their own bodies. But when a woman had a baby at home and she realized that her body was perfectly capable of all of this stuff, and more than that, she gave birth like a mammal, like they didn't clamp the cord right away. I mean, think about it. Okay, so Laura, you got the baby goats, right? Can you imagine if you went out there and you were around surveillance, high surveillance, fetal monitoring, the goats coming out, and then we're going to cut the cord out. Oh, and then the first thing we're going to do is we're going to whisk that baby goat away, and we're going to take it into the house, and we are going to clean it up. But now it's cold because we put it in water. And now we got to put it in an incubator to warm it up. And 3 hours later, we're going to take it back to its mother. Well, I'll tell you what would happen. The mother would reject the goat, because that's called bonding. And we finally, by messing it up, we humans discovered that there is indeed a sensitive period. And this is when the baby and the mother need to be together to fall in love. Now, humans are wonderfully promiscuous when it comes to love. So you can love a baby that you adopt. I mean, kids can go through all kinds of hell and still be okay at the end. In fact, I work with a medical intuitive who says, when a baby is being born and the soul knows that it's going to be adopted, she can see the soul as a little orb on the shoulder of the biologic mother and a little orb on the adoptive mother as well. So there's a really big picture, but on the day-to-day level, like mammals, you don't mess with the birth process. And we've been messing with the birth process for as long as you can remember. The Chamberlain brothers, who invented a kind of forceps, became very famous. The forceps. Louis XIV, by the way, was a voyeur. The whole reason for giving birth in the dorsal lithotomy position, which means you're lying back here, your legs are up in stirrups. You can't see a thing, but it's good for the doctor. That was invented by Louis XIV. So he could come in and watch. And then that was taken over into medicine. So what I did was just call out all of that crap in my own profession And I would do things like, take the baby and put it on the mother's abdomen. The first time I did that, the attending physician went out of his mind. It's like, how can you do that? She touched your hand. You're no longer sterile. Dr. McGovern, I just took the baby out of the vagina. The only way to sterilize it is to boil it. And, that he couldn't okay. So, and then circumcision. I remember the first time I was taught how to do this, and the doc goes, they don't feel it. The med student faints. She falls dead away because her body knows they can feel it. So I was just calling out a few things. Okay. And here's what would happen. The women would know in their own body, oh, this feels right to me. I just never heard a doctor say it. So their own intuition was pumped up by my work. And so that's why. But then also, okay, so then we have also the Malleus Maleficorum, the hammer of the witches. By the way, I think these people are the same people. They've just come back in a different body. And we had 9 million women burned as witches for being the healers and the midwives. And that included the men who also supported them. I had a past life reading once, and they said that my parents were burned at the Salem witch trials. Only my dad was the woman and my mother was the guy. It makes total sense. So anything that has allowed humans to understand that we are fearfully and wonderfully made in the image of God, and that, as Jesus said, these things and more ye shall do also. Oh, we can't have that. We can't have that. I mean, where's the control and the slavery in that? I mean, then people wouldn't put up with the BS. So anyway, that's, and when that book first came out, June of 1994, I would wake up screaming that it was in the house ready to kill me. And at that time, what I would say to people is, nobody gets into their full power until they walk through a wall of fire in the morphogenic field that Rupert Sheldrake talked about, of energy and information, the presence of the past. And whether or not I was burned at the stake or whatever, I swear to you, my Pilates teacher once, we're doing something to release something in my muscles. And she says, oh, okay, I see us. We're both at the gallows together. I'm looking over at you. You're looking at me. Just before the two of us were executed. That's been, to me, that stuff just has always made sense to me. All of that stuff. So now we're here. We get an opportunity to be here at the greatest awakening that the planet has ever known, to ascend into a whole other dimension. We chose to be here because we are the strongest, most resilient warriors ever known to humanity, or you would not be here. You would not have agreed to come. And so you might imagine, having gone through that for the first book in 1994, then when I did The Wisdom of Menopause, then I lost my professorship at the University of Vermont College of Medicine. I used to teach med students, and all of that. Oh no, got a little, we're sorry, you no longer can be an assistant clinical professor of OBGYN because, oh my God, you're now telling women that menopause is the entrance to the wisdom years. What are we going to do if we empower all of these postmenopausal women, the women with the most wisdom? I mean, everyone forgets that the United States Constitution was modeled after the Treaty of the Great Nations of the Iroquois. There was one thing they left out, and that was that the final decisions about whether to go to war or any other big decision fell to the Council of Grandmothers. I'm telling you, the grandmothers are the fiercest. I mean, not what we've done with grandmothers. Oh, honey, with a little bun, and I'm going to bake you cookies. Oh, no, you want the grandmothers like me.
Yeah.
Like I am going to be all over you.
Oh my
So,
God.
Well, I mean, even when you
that's why.
even when you think about the idea how they used to slap the child. I mean,
Yeah.
that's absolutely the most cruelest, abusive, insane
Listen, the whole way we deliver babies is cruel, abusive, and insane. I had a colleague who'd circumcise them in the delivery room to get it over with. It's bad enough. It's bad enough to clamp the cord. It's bad enough. So Dr. Larry Palevsky and Larry is this amazing pediatrician, and he talked about how he used to resuscitate babies. So they'd give him a kid, that's all floppy, he just put his hands under the head like an osteopath and do Reiki. And then he'd say, and I would preside over the real birth of the baby, because then the soul would realize it was safe to come into the body now.
Right.
So, basically, probably all of us, we got to work through our own birth trauma, which we keep repeating over and over and over. Like start with, you clamp the cord and the kid okay. If you are out in space on an umbilical cord connected to the mothership, what if someone just clamped that? It's panic. So the heart and the lungs are going through these incredible changes of the ductus arteriosus, and then the right part of the heart is opening up, and you're going to go from your mother's nourishment through the umbilical cord to room air. Profound changes. Nature makes it so that you got to back up. The cord is still pulsating. You're okay. You're okay. There will be enough. There will be enough. And then the room air starts in. I was just talking to Stanford Home out in California, and there are couples doing what are called free birth, where they just decide to have their baby at home. And one of them called him and he said, the baby hasn't cried for 4 days. He hasn't cried. Doesn't need to.
Yeah.
Breathing fine. Everything's fine. So imagine in the new world to which we're going, we'll totally change the way babies are born. There's something I've been working on my entire career. But the birth cycle is the way that God comes into human form. So even with men, their wombs are external. I don't care what you say about the transgendered. I'm sorry, guys. Your wombs are external. If you were born with XY chromosome, you don't have a womb. I'm sorry, you don't. I would get on the stage with anyone over that one. That one fries me.
You don't need to be a biologist.
Don't even start.
What a woman is.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know. I'm not a biologist.
Well, that was being spoken of in Australia in the Senate most recently. One of the ministers of health, the group on that team, was asked, and he can't answer it. And that's not true. He can answer it, but he's being told.
Yeah, we know that.
Fit another story, but it certainly seems to be an intention to destroy the idea of woman.
Well, it is. Well, it is, because think about it. That's The Handmaid's Tale, which, by the way, even when it first came out, I couldn't read it. Someone says, "Oh, you need to watch this on television." No, I don't. I've lived it. I know what they're trying to do. But right now, okay, so it's a couple things, right? It's the Georgia Guidestone. So we got the 500,000 or 500 million. Yeah. That's the number they want to get to. So some of these inoculations are producing, like if you give birth to a baby girl, she will have premature ovarian failure. It's going to skip a generation, because they got to get it down to the 500 million that they can control through AI. It's not going to work. So I just want everyone to know it is not going to work. You want to laugh at it, because here's what you do. Okay, anyone ever be in an apartment with cockroaches? You come out in the kitchen, middle of the night, turn on the light. They're all running for the crack. That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. My current little agenda is to find out all the young global leaders in our state and how they've infiltrated like cockroaches. Yeah. They're all the cute ones. They're all the woke ones. They're really good looking. They have good coffee shops. I just want everyone to know who they are. So then we'll have a little parade.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because with the whole the Canadian convoy that happened, there were a number of Ottawa individuals from the World Economic Forum that were listed on that website in Ottawa. And then it was very quickly deleted when people began, right?
Yeah. These are the ones. It's all you need to know. Just, and it's pretty easy right now to find. So, you can even use Google. You can use Chrome, for God's sake. Young global leaders, they're very proud of themselves. They are the elite. We went to all the best schools and we're the ones who look the best. And, they're bright and shiny, woke faces. They've infiltrated our entire state. And I just want to get all of their names and all of that. Now, I won't do the voodoo death thing, but I will send. I'll send the heavenly host out to do the job. I don't need to do it. I just want the heavenly host to, I want the big ass avenging angels to go out there, the ones who parted the Red Sea. I figure we can command those because we're fearfully and wonderfully made in the image of God. And we have spiritual authority. We don't know we have this spiritual authority, but we do. And we got to remember, instead of being victims, women, victims of their bodies, victims of their husbands, victims of your doctor, victims of your pediatrician. Are you kidding me? I mean, starting in 2020, when this started up, the phrase that came into my head over and over and over was, "Get thee behind me, Satan."
Yeah, because there was there was a war on our consciousness, a war on the mind. And that's why it's so important for people to take back control of this and let them.
Well, how Lee Carroll talks about it. He said, this is a regressive species. They've been controlling the planet for decades, centuries, and now a portal is closing and they will be leaving. And I would like to be one of the ones chasing them with a pitchfork. I think I am.
Or shining that bright light so that they, you have no choice but to be seen.
Yeah. And we do it with joy.
Yes.
And we do it with humor. I mean, you should have seen me and Seth. This is December 4th. We're doing a big fundraiser for Maine Stands Up. And I decide we have to sing, I raise a hallelujah. My weapon is a melody. Heaven holds a place for me. So we did this big old Christian anthem. We had the whole place just rocking. So I think that when you raise your voice in song like that, darkness flees. It just flees. It doesn't know what to do.
Yeah. And I think people need to remember that those that were in control, those that have been running the show forever, that want you to steer away from nature and away from the natural, they want us to keep creating what we've created before. And we can't do that. We need to use our imaginations to view that whole new world. And we really, like you had mentioned, we don't have freedom in medicine at all. We're not allowed to choose whether it's a homeopathic doctor or acupuncturist or Reiki or what have you. That's been steered away from as quack, right? As quackery.
Well, that's all a word invented by the American Medical Association, which was created by the Rockefellers. And the Flexner Report. So this is a long time coming to make everyone believe that, if it's an herbologist or if it's whatever, that's quackery. My aunt was a pediatrician. And when I went to med school, she gave me a book, The Nuts Among the Berries. And it was about being a health nut. I was brought up on organic food and all that. And my dad was a dentist and his brother and sister were medical doctors. You got to love the soul choice. Okay. We're going to give you every Thanksgiving and Christmas will be like a meeting of the American the American Medical Association, except for my father, who was a dentist. And he would say, you can tell the state of a person's health by looking in their mouth, but nobody wants you messing with their mouth because it's the center of the personality. And then his brother and sister, the great white doctors, would make fun of him, but he was having more fun and we were healthier.
Interesting.
And so, God just said, we are going to red pill you before you go to medical school. So you will be impervious to the bullshit, but you'll learn to love what's good about it. Like a good orthopedic surgeon, man, we all need a good bone setter. We all do. Mm-hmm. More than that,
So you were awake before you even went to medical school. You had the gift of awake parents, which is amazing, because I certainly didn't have that at all. Not at
Well,
all.
my mother was wrongly accused of painting the Blessed Mother's toenails on the altar in 1935 at a girls' Catholic school, and she didn't do it. But the priest made her kneel in front of Jesus, with her arms outstretched for 30 minutes all week long, because, God is love. And then he came to the house and told her that if she didn't confess, she would burn in hell. And then, she was 12. And she told him where to stick it. And her mother supported her. So we have a matrilineal line of not throwing kids under the bus. One time I'm at a piano lesson, I'm 11. The woman's got, Mrs. Taylor, she has one of those paintings where they show the rapture, where the people are flying out of their cars looking like angels.
Yeah, yeah.
And she stops me in the middle of, it's probably Swans on the Lake, John Thompson. She goes, "Are you ready?" I go, like, "I'm 11, ready for what?" Right. And she goes, "Are you ready to go? Like, are you ready to do this rapture thing?" I get in the car. I tell my mother. She goes, "You're done going there."
Oh my God.
So obviously, excuse me, having all of that information before you even went to medical school, it was pretty, like, what was the TSM turning point for you in 2015 when you decided you didn't want to renew your license? Like, what had happened? I mean, obviously everything that you've already shared is plenty of evidence to say, I don't want anything to do with this. But what was the big marker?
Well, I had been sued 8 times. That was enough. My last two lawsuits were with PBS, were with things that I had said on public television. And these were lawsuits that were they would sort of come out of nowhere. And I would think, you've got to be kidding. You have got to be kidding me. I mean, the one, I don't think it was the last one, but second to the last, was that I had a woman, a friend of mine who is a nanny in the United States, received a letter from her mother on her 40th birthday. And it was this beautiful letter that had been so healing for her. She grew up in Liverpool. She didn't know her father. And so the mother sends Tracy this letter. And it was so beautiful. And I said, can I put that in my mother-daughter wisdom book? And Tracy says, absolutely. I mean, it was just like, we all want that redemption moment with our mothers, right? Mm-hmm. Usually we don't get it. So let me just say that, except on the deathbed. But this was a beautiful example. Okay, so I read it in Act 3 of my Mother-Daughter Wisdom PBS special. Well, it turned out, and you can't make this stuff up. It turned out that her mother in England had bought a greeting card at the local drugstore, copied the inside of the greeting card, and just pretended that this was her own letter. So God orchestrated it so that whoever was the guy who wrote that greeting card thought that I was using his words to make a load of money. I laughed. I said, I had permission to use that letter, and I didn't know that the person who writes the letter has the copyright, but obviously Tracy's mother in Liverpool had no idea. Mm-hmm. And we weren't going to out her and make her embarrassed. And so we called the guy and we said, this is a great story. We had no idea. We would like to, how about we put all your material on the website? He didn't have a website or anything. And we will, we'll just showcase your work, and it's a great story, and talk about how it happened. And he says, I want you to get me on Oprah, and I want you to write a book with me. And it's like, okay, how about no? And by the way, about 3 years ago, he writes to me, he says, I think it's time we spoke again about what happened after a lawsuit that went on for 2 years and cost me tens of thousands of dollars. I don't think so. Yeah. I don't think we're going to talk again here. So anyway, that stuff had happened. I'd had enough patients report me to the Board of Registration. They all happen to be this, energy vampires. This is where I really learned the hard way about personality disorders and narcissists and psychopaths. Help me, you can't. Help me, you can't. I was not the perfect mother, so they attacked me. And so I was sick of it. I was just sick of it. I said, why do I need this anymore? What I couldn't have imagined, that now my colleagues now in Maine who have, I'll give you an example. One is a pediatric cardiologist, and he had a 16-year-old come in with chest pain. She had just gotten the shot. And he said to the mother, these shots can be associated with myocarditis. So let's just wait a month. And I don't want to give her permission to be on this traveling sports team because it's too rigorous. Let's just see what's going on with her heart. The mother was so mad that he criticized the shot that she reported him to the Board of Registration in Medicine. And now his license is at risk. In the same way that your neighbor now reports you, by the way, there are laws now in other states where doctors and nurses are encouraged to report the doctors who would have been like me, who are telling you maybe you would like to not get a hepatitis B shot for your newborn. Maybe you don't want to circumcise that kid. Maybe you don't want 79 mandated shots by the age of 18. I would have been reported hundreds of times. As it turned out, the New York Times, Washington Post, CNN, they all did FOIA requests to the Board of Registration in Medicine because they wanted to get dirt on me. And then the Board of Registration would say, oh, you know, really sorry. She's no longer under our jurisdiction. How do you like them apples?
Yeah.
So that was great.
Oh my God.
So it's an industry that you can no longer be honest. You cannot think for yourself. You can't have alternative ideas. You certainly can't use intuition or natural processes to ensure the care of people. And you certainly can't speak out against the negative.
No, so if we as a people do not speak out against these medical boards, the tyranny of these medical boards, then the only doctors you're going to get are the ones who follow orders. Joseph Mengele comes to mind.
Yeah.
So I would just tell people, you're really better off on your own. I mean, I've had a couple of people come up to me, well, I need to find a doctor. It's like, well, good luck with that.
Yeah, I don't even go. I don't even go.
I don't even go. No, I haven't gone. And my eye guy said, okay, when was your last physical? I said August. That's because I went sea kayaking with a doctor friend of mine.
Yeah, if I've got anything going on with me, the first thing I do is I usually go to my acupuncturist.
Oh, always.
I go because I know it's. Go ahead, Laura.
I just relate so deeply. I mean, this has always been the case. I think I've only been to the gynecologist once in my life. But if it was Dr. Northup, I would have gone.
Oh yeah, we would have fun.
But just in my pregnancy, I didn't, with twins, I didn't go to the doctor until I was 5 months into it, barely had any care, and was full term. They both were delivered vaginally, both over like 6 pounds. So I was huge.
Yes,
and then my mom had me at home, and that was really rare in those days. And I was born in England and was born at home. And then they took the placenta, and the midwife used it for her roses for a contest to grow roses, and it won the contest. And then, so I always avoided doctors, but this book, In the House of the Moon, Reclaiming the Feminine Spirit of Healing, actually helped me to heal, because it's all about what you're talking about, Dr. Northup. It's all about the elements. It's all about the feminine healing. It's all about the wisdom of the mother. And this book changed my life, because I was having some serious health issues in high school. And I'm like, I don't want to go to the doctor. And this book miraculously and synchronistically came into my life, and I absolutely healed myself. And I lost track of the book, and I ordered it not long ago, because in my when I do sessions for people, the medical astrology component, really brings in just that fuller picture of understanding ourselves and connecting back into the intuition. So I'm glad my mom had me at home, because it just kind of like helped me to, in certain ways, because avoiding the doctor and just doing my own self-healing by checking in with my body and where the pain was and why a certain symptom was coming up, and like speaking to it and going on a journey. I just learned how to self-heal like really young. And then I ran an organic shipping and delivery company in the early 90s, before like Whole Foods, for chemically sensitive people. And then I realized it's not just that they're immunocompromised. And I remember taking microbiology and having a panel of AIDS patients coming. And I'm like, it's not just that they have this virus or they're sick. There's a much, much larger picture connected to dark agendas, connected to the targeting, connected to also how their psyche and their emotional and mental health has a lot to do with why their body is responding in this kind of way. That I presented it to the teacher, and she's like, oh yeah, you need to go into like alternative healing and immunotherapy, and all these different things that hadn't even been thought of. And I got terrible grades in high school, but I remember I got so interested in understanding the metaphysical and the sort of deeper aspects of healing and sort of going into medical astrology. I even found a mistake in a textbook that had been out for like 45 years. And I'm like, they got this formula wrong. And the science teacher was one of my favorite teachers. She loved me. The only teacher that like really inspired me to actually get good grades. She took it back to the people, and they're like, you're right. You found a mistake in the book. It's been in print for 45 years. And you're the only one that has noticed that they got that formula wrong. And so that was really empowering, because I was carrying so many stigmas of Laura's got learning disabilities. Laura's crazy. Laura's just the fuck up child. Sorry about my language. And just like carrying all those stigmas of just like Laura's just stupid, kind of crazy. And I, meanwhile, in the background was developing this whole other education about healing and tapping into the feminine wisdom, understanding this planetary body. And that's why I just so appreciate your story, Dr. Christian, of like being in that industry and like standing up for that and being revolutionary and pioneering and being able to flip this over and get this back to the groundedness that future generations need, that we need in the here and now more than anything. I think it's the most important thing on the planet right now, what you're doing and what you're shining light on, especially coming from the background that you have. And it's unbelievable to me, the level of ridicule or just not being taken seriously, that people are literally shooting themselves in the foot. They're literally denying themselves the divine inheritance of this incredible treasure trove of healing power and wisdom that we can tap into. I can't believe people have it in them to deny themselves this soul-centered approach to living. It's mind-blowing to me. But anyway, I just wanted to share that.
It is mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing. And, luckily, because we all here believe in our soul's journey and what we're, if I hadn't had all of that prequel to this, I would have caved. I mean, I just, if I hadn't woken up in the middle of the night screaming because Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom was about to come out, and I had to go into grand rounds with my colleagues. Now, back in the early 80s, I was on the cover of East West Journal and with my daughter, Anne, as an infant. And I said, please don't publish this article about eating whole foods until after I'm board certified in OBGYN. So I had to go to Chicago, do my oral boards. So that issue came out in December of whatever year it was. And I went to the food co-op and I bought every issue so that none of my colleagues in Maine would see it. But I couldn't buy every copy of Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom, because that was Random House. Hello. So I thought when I walked in that, that they would land on me. But the truth of the matter is that most people are just interested in their own daily lives. They're not really looking at what I'm doing. I mean, that's just really true. There's a few. Like I was taking a walk in my neighborhood a couple weekends ago, and a friend of mine's walking with me, just had foot surgery. He's on crutches. He says to the guy, Hey, sure sign of spring. You're cleaning up your wood pile. The guy didn't hear him, so he repeats himself. Then the guy looks at me and he goes, oh, if I'd known it was you, I wouldn't have been so friendly. You're the Satan of misinformation and you're not welcome here. Now, it takes a lot of time to deal with that. It felt terrible. Let me be very clear to everybody listening. That kind of direct in your face criticism feels terrible. But 20 years ago, if I'd gotten a letter like that, and I got plenty, I would be out of commission for a month of beating myself up. What have I done? What could I have done differently? All of that stuff. Now it's like, okay, that felt bad for maybe 4 minutes. 4 minutes. Then I asked another neighbor who knows him, tell me about this guy. Well, he's got prostate cancer and is kind of, a curmudgeon in the neighborhood. Okay, well, I guess I won't be walking by that house anytime soon. But in terms of it having the ability to wreck my life, nope.
And
Because
this is all,
I can't.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you can't even, the amount of love coming at me from around the globe is so powerful compared to a few of these people who have literally in the power versus force world, they have no power whatsoever. That is an incredibly out of touch, powerless person. And there's so many more people, you were saying at the beginning, boy, are we going to have to create the container for these people who are just waking up. They're going to be throwing up on the streets. You're going to have to hold their hair back. Yeah. I'm telling you, that's what's coming. That's what's coming. And so Seth and I, in our state, we have been helping create little communities all over the place that will be safe places for people to go so that they can meet their own people and feel safe. For now, because we're going to be the ones leading this new thing. All the work that we've spent really years preparing for, being in the crucible, having all the stuff just burnt off us until we can just stand. And Seth, tell them about that thing where you're out walking in the posted area on the train trestle and the cop comes along. Just tell them what happened. That's a beautiful story.
It's essentially natural law, right? It's this idea of, are we part of the system or are we sovereign beings, right? And when you're part of the system, you're not able to feel love. You're not able to exemplify what it's like to be in a state of self-acceptance of what you are. And that tends to keep people in a state of fear. And I'm walking down this trail, railroad track, and this cop just comes out of nowhere and pulls me over and says, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And, at first I'm like, whoa, okay, I'm not trying to talk to the guy. And he's like ready. He's like hand on his gun, the whole thing. And I'm just walking down the railroad tracks, like, and same thing, for those who don't know me, I've been to hell and back a million times. However, I was born as a young child knowing that I am not who the world tells me I am. I am whatever this energy that is causing my heart to beat. That's who I am. That's what I am. And when this guy was talking to me, like he's all like fear-based, authority-based, like trying to like belittle me and make me afraid, I just stopped and I asked myself, I was like, what can I do to best serve this other soul and myself in this situation? And I immediately just calmed down, started breathing, and I felt this energy that I identify with. I don't identify with my name. Laura and I were talking about this the other night. Like my name, it was given to me. I'm not Seth. I am this force of energy, this soul that is animating this being. And so I started talking to this guy from that place, from a place of, okay, I'm not this person who's afraid of you. I am this loving force of nature, and I'm going to communicate with you on that level. And so he immediately just started calming down. And we had the most amazing conversation for like 45 minutes. We're talking about all the crystals that grow in the state of Maine where we are. And he admits to me at the end, he's like, wow, he's like, I'm so sorry I acted the way I did. He's like, I did not expect this to be the outcome. He said something like that. I didn't expect to have this kind of conversation with somebody, you know, but the point of it is we all are this. And Laura and I were talking about this the other night too. What a gift to have Dr. Northup, somebody who has been so entrenched, been so part of the system, who has the balls, excuse my language, but has the guts to stand up and call it out for what it is. It's a system of control that does not have our best outcome in its being. It wants us to be a part of something where we stay little and afraid and all. No. It's time to be that loving force, be that energy, that consciousness that we know we are, and to have all of you be the voices that you are, to be the representation of what is possible. You know, to have Dr. Northup like literally coming out of the system and doing that, it just affirms for all the spiritual people that think spirituality is whatever they, you know, it's like, this is beyond who we think we are or what the system has trained us. This is like an ancient remembrance of what it is we truly are, and we have the potential to embody that here now. So,
you know, I was talking to my friend Jeff Weitzman, who was just serving the members of the San Diego County Commissioner Board with papers saying that you are breaking the law. Now,
amazing.
Jeff says,
for those who don't know, yeah,
Jeff goes, nothing is more powerful than an honest man or woman armed with the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And Jeff does it in the most loving manner possible. Now, he said something important. He said when he just did this, and it's on YouTube and it's on my Telegram channel, so you can watch it. He said that you can tell when the energy is demonic because you feel like you can't breathe.
Mm.
And then they get scared and they will start interrupting you. So I just want to say to people, one of the things that I know that the so-called New Age has gotten wrong is this idea that it's all love and light and that only people who have been hurt other people. No, there's really demonic energy, evil. That's just, it's there. And so when you feel like you can't breathe, then you rise up in the truth like you did with the cop. And he wasn't demonic. Most people they're just in fear. Most people, but let's be clear. 1 in 100 is a psychopath.
Mm-hmm.
And the psychopaths running the planet is way less than that. And most people are just being puppeted by a higher up thing. Although I have heard way back at the beginning of this, that the head of the Hydra had been removed. And so these little minions really don't know what they're doing and they're making mistakes and all of that stuff. It doesn't matter. What I know is right this very moment, as we act the way we're acting, as you confront a person like that, as Jeff stands up at the county boards, as I go to the Republican county meetings and just say, look, you've been tricked. And this is what I want you to know. And medical freedom needs to be the number one thing that we're going for. Because if you lose the ability to determine what gets injected into your body or that of your children, there isn't any other agenda. But when you can do that without fear, and I have to say, that's what this last 2 years has been about, which is me standing up in those places that make you suddenly need to catch your breath. Those places that are drenched in darkness. And then we go in as beings of light, as air purifiers, whether that's walking around the grocery store or in a VFW hall I mean, let me just say, I have gone from the Oprah Winfrey show with the best lighting and sound and tech on the planet into VFW halls where I'm lucky if they have an extension cord. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's got to be really, really, really grassroots, because the microclimate in my yard is different from the microclimate 2 miles inland from here. So it's got to be just like the plants, just like Laura, whatever, what you're doing, where you live, it's going to be different from what Seth and I are doing or what you're doing in Ontario. It's going to be different in every place, but it's that force of nature that rises up in us. And I'm just telling you, it's a very exciting time to be alive. I was just talking to my friend, who runs American Media Periscope and has one of the truther shows. And he had some old high school buddies visiting. He said, well, that relationship is over. They have all had the juice and they're all talking about retirement. Well, that's boring. I mean, we're just getting started.
Oh my God.
Really good.
I feel it so much too. What's that say?
Go ahead, Laura.
Oh no, you go.
I was going to say, this comes back full circle to what Paula is doing with her course, because it's about establishing heart-brain coherence. It's about being conscious of breathing. When you are, you're breathing shallow, like Dr. Northup said, you're probably in a state of fear or resistance or contraction.
Yeah.
But when you slow down, you become conscious of your breathing, then suddenly your physical being goes back in harmony with itself. And that fear, that impulse to contract starts to lessen, and you become more relaxed, more at peace with yourself. And then you become empowered again. And then whatever it is that you're facing isn't such a threat.
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about this a lot lately, and we did when we all three came together, where, adversity and challenge is an opportunity to get closer to ourselves, to build strength, to just get to know ourselves more, and to get closer to one another, right? Just like in relationship, the challenges and stresses should bond us and bring us closer. But when it does the opposite, where we feel adversity or pain and we give our power away and we expect something outside of us to solve it, or we feel weakened by it, or we disconnect from the physical body and we say somebody else is in charge of it, not us, or there's conflict or stress in a relationship, but it's all about drama and projections and blame, shame, victim game, the communication is going to fall apart. So adversity is a blessing if we can have the right perspective to face it and be the alchemist, be able to blossom and thrive in the face of it, which your story very much is about, Seth. And that's how I kind of look at the dark weapons and like chemtrails and just all these assaults on humanity. I look at it and I say, I'm gonna perceive you as a tool for my growth, as a tool for healing, because you have no power over me. You're not a weapon. I'm not having to feel victimized or afraid. I'm going to transmute it in my mind and turn that weapon into a tool. And in my mind, I feel I'm nullifying and dismantling that dark weaponry because it has no power over me, just like a narcissist or abuser or a patriarchal program has no power over me. And throughout human history, we have been under this Saturn moon matrix manipulation that is manifested in so many different forms in the food we eat and what they've done to it, to what they've done to Mother Earth and the geoengineering and what they've done to the elements. To me, the Earth responds to us, and with the ether energy and connecting with the mother and igniting that mitochondrial DNA and allowing that purification process to happen, I feel like the Earth responds to us and we clean the elemental kingdoms. We have the elemental kingdoms rise and we purify it from, within, because it's a direct reflection of the contamination that we're all carrying. And that's what I love about what we're all doing in our personal locations. We're working closely with the earth. And I just feel what's rising is just the beginning of what we've all been looking forward to, instead of like this artificial timeline and this narrative that is like a future that I can't believe people are willingly participating in and co-creating and enabling without realizing it. It's like it's time to divorce ourselves from the imposters and the old paradigm so that we can embrace the true love of our experience. It's just like we have to do in life, get rid of the toxic relationships and the bad abusive situations, empower ourselves in that adversity, stop being victims, and experience the true love, the Christ Sophia, the divine marriage, the alchemical marriage, the hierogamic union, so that we really, like, after facing the villain and the dark night of the soul, can begin to reunite that true love, to have the happily ever after. Doesn't mean it's not going to be bumpy, but we grow in adversity and we get closer to one another instead of all this divide and conquer separation.
Exactly. And that's, think about it. We wouldn't even know each other. I wouldn't know Seth. I wouldn't have read his book. I wouldn't know, like the incredible coming together of this community. I have better friends than I've ever had. I have a better social life than I've ever had. I don't have to pretend I'm anything I'm not. It's already here. It's already here, though I would really like it if you Canadians could get out of there now and again, and I could come there. I love Canada.
We're not allowed out of the country.
I know. I know.
The only way I can leave right now is if I can swing a private jet, and that's $3,500 US an hour.
Oh my God.
Right now. So it's a bit insane. But to go back to what you were saying, Seth, about the breath, you can't be in the future or in the past if you're breathing consciously. It has to pull you into the now moment, which is the only place that we can be connected to source, because it always happens in the moment that we're in, right? And creation always happens in the now too. You can't create in the future if you're not in the now, which is so good. So even something like conscious breathing is out of reach for some folks because they're not even thinking about it. And you have to do it anyway, so you might as well be conscious about it, right?
Yeah.
You have to do it anyway. And because whenever anybody mentions the whole idea of breath, it brings you right back into your body and into the now. Like if you were just to say now, okay, everybody breathe, they're going to forget about what they were thinking of and come back into the now moment. But that leads us a really good segue too, because there are a lot of planetary influences that are happening right now to bring even more light into what has been hidden in the shadows. I had a friend of mine say to me recently, oh my God, it seems like the world is getting darker. And I said, actually, it's getting lighter because all this cosmic light and our awareness, I read once that one person connected to source is more powerful than 1 million people in fear.
Yeah,
it doesn't
back
matter.
to Sheldrake. This is morphogenic fields. One person who chooses not to succumb to the darkness of their own fear is able to become conscious of the nature of their own consciousness to the degree that they break the conditioning, they break social engineering, and they radiate. And if enough of us do that and are able to stay in that space despite all the stuff that's happening, then the 100th monkey effect, we influence one another. We represent the potential that we all have, right? And it's funny, I'm thinking about what Laura and I were talking about the other night, how those who are not taking responsibility for their state of being would listen to a conversation with all of us and say, oh, they're controlled opposition. Don't listen to these people. They're all.
Oh yeah. Let me just. Oh my! I was an NSA agent today.
Yeah. No, seriously.
In my comments, on Facebook, and there's websites out about me that I'm a Nazi whore too, and it's just like.
And that's all the stuff that's so like, as a child, like when I was born, I knew that I wasn't. Oops, sorry. There's a knowing inside every single one of us that if we choose to become conscious of, it breaks that social engineering. It breaks that systematic control that many of us don't even realize we've given our soul to, we've given the power inside of us over to. And when you choose to wake up, to feel what that consciousness is by breathing with it, by being present with it, by all the things that Paula was saying and Dr. Northup, then suddenly you're not in a state of fear. You trust that everything that's happening is exactly as it should be. And that's a beautiful place to be because you're not afraid anymore. Yeah. And you know that, okay, stuff's dark, it's ugly, it is what it is, but it's perfect for what has to
Well,
happen at this point in our life. Go ahead, Laura.
absolutely, totally beautiful. And this is the thing too. It's like just facing, that level of darkness. To me, I mean, life is an adventure. That challenge is what it's all about. I mean, my background in wilderness expedition leadership is just like everything was about the challenge. The challenge is everything. Everything kind of revolves around how to face it. So pain is welcomed. If you are like lacking oxygen, you're kind of out of breath, or you need water and you're trying not to be dehydrated, you're facing like a scorpion or a rattlesnake, or your muscles are hurting, you're in a lot of pain. Maybe you get injured, but when it's pain that's not asked for, then that pain is suffering. That pain is like horrific, and we fear the pain. But when we're accepting of the challenge, we like the pain. The pain builds strength. We are able to monitor our bodies and what its limits are, and maybe push that limit. And it's welcome pain. People get ears pierced or tattoos. That's welcome pain. Pain doesn't have to be a bad thing. But when it's not welcomed, we feel abused or victimized, or we suffer. And so if we can get power over the mind and that coherence that you guys are talking about, to be able to accept the situation more, and evolve and grow from it, we can transmute that pain into something that will give us wisdom and life experience and boundaries and greater protection, so that we don't feel that unwelcome pain from something external that feels like it's hurting us or attacking us. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I'm just being conscious of the time here. So I want to change gears just a little bit as we wrap up together and talk a little bit more about the community that you, Christiane, and Seth were talking about at the very beginning, and how what empowers us to get away from the matrix. If you want to share a little bit about that, if we can.
We're working with some gold and silver and kind of forming a alternative banking system, an alternative communication, an alternative abundance and prosperity system. That what I love about it is it's not a top down. So you think about the president of a bank, and are the tellers ever going to do as well as the bank president? No. But in our approach, we want people to surpass us. You don't do well unless you're helping others do well. And so we'll leave a link down there in the description for those who are interested in another model. There's another thing that I just want to say to everybody listening. And that is, and I've heard this from Alex Collier, I've heard it from Bolt Polney, I've heard it from Kirk Elliott, Sovereign Advisors, and that is, we are at a little window this very now moment where the precious metal, or the noble metal silver, like the moon, is currently being held down artificially. And so if everybody could get a little silver or a little gold, that is set to go to $600 to $1,000 an ounce by the end of the year. So it's just now I know that many people are into crypto, like my friend David Avocado Wolf, and other people are into crypto. We're going to, whether we like it or not, the petrodollar, the US dollar, with all the Masonic symbols on it and the eye and all that, is probably on the way out. And we know that the Russian rubles are now backed by gold. So I think that there's a sort of a quantum financial system in the works. But in the meantime, so I'm thinking of, we're at okay, so now you're fully dilated and ready to push. All right. So at this particular time, I would like for people to know how to get some silver. Now you can do that. There's a company, APMEX, APMEX, where you can just get some silver dollars or Canadian maple leaves, that kind of thing. By the way, Canadian maple leaves, I've just found out, those are not reportable. I don't know if you can get them, but anyway, so we're working with that ecosystem that Robert Kiyosaki calls God's money, but it's within a community. And so, if you're interested in that, you can check on the link. What we're trying to do, we've got like 2,000 nurses and medical workers who left their job rather than get the juice. And so we're about seeing if we can help as many people as possible make a living outside of the matrix. And even though I believe that we're moving to a system where you won't even need money, I really believe that that's where we're going to go eventually. But right now, like in Maine, we've got someone in Harrison, Maine said they're going to have a fair like 4 times a year where you just exchange goods and services, bartering, there's real estate, there's crypto, whatever it is. We got to get out of the matrix. And so Seth and I are working with this one particular company to do that. So if that feels right to you, but even if it doesn't, get some silver, just get it. You'll be happy that you did. I don't know why, but I have this intuitive feeling when I heard about this to just get as much of my fiat currency into silver as I possibly could. I began to get that feeling last year. And, you know, again, that has to do with your own intuition, but I know that I've always been like out front ahead of these things, like vitamin D. I started to talk about that in 1990. And people now in medicine, they've caught on, but it takes a while. So anyway, that's what I wanted to say. And, you know, Seth and I are also, you know, we're doing community meetings. We have this barn in Dresden that he found, which it was the only place, believe it or not, in the state of Maine where we could gather with more than 4 people and not be shut down. So we started at this celebration barn that Seth found, and he knew all the people, and we're going to have a big event there April 23rd, and then another really big one on June 25th. We're not waiting, okay, for the government to figure it out, for Donald Trump to come back, or the Andromedans to come in on the ship. We're not waiting. We're doing it now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was hearing, actually, I've heard from a couple of folks that have said that the new currency will be based on the frequency of the heart and on the love and an intention that we put into our creativity. That is how abundance will be, and that would make sense, because you don't want the abundance being given to those that are going to abuse it and hoard it, when we are meant to come together and collaborate and create absolute beauty for each other, which is the new world that we're working on creating together. You're going to say something, Laura?
Oh, no, I'm just
sitting forward and enjoying.
I'm right where you guys are at with all this. We're doing it here in Montana, and looking to have a place for people to retreat to when they're in a transition from getting out of the matrix into really being able to utilize their skills and abilities in a way that isn't dependent on the system. Like kind of like a safe sort of place to go. And I also want to, you know, assist people in kind of wrapping up those kind of things, and like a healing center. And right now we just are kind of homesteading and have a bunch of, you know, animals. So some of the neighbors come with their babies, kind of like a little petting zoo, but I don't like the word zoo. But yeah, it's really about that. Like, we don't need this matrix system, this inverted system that is vampiring off of us and is parasitic. And I really also want to bridge the gap between those that got the juice and those that didn't, so that the divide and conquer doesn't stand too much in the way of what's going on with our friends and families. But no doubt, do we have to have like boundaries and really just protect ourselves and take care of what needs to be taken care of. But yeah, so I got a lot of things in the works, similar visions, and I can't wait to come out and visit you guys in Maine and see what you have going on. And I'd love it for you guys to come out here when we're ready. But yeah, so it's just so inspiring, and this is what is so important for people. You have to have that passion and inspiration to wake up every morning and know that your calling and your mission is the driving force behind your creative energies, and how that creative energy will hold that intention and manifest it. Don't let anything else infect it or get inside of you in that way, because you're only going to enable a future you don't want. And let's call our power back, because it's up to us to create the beautiful future that awaits. So I'll just say that in my website, cosmicguide.org, all my info's there.
Yeah, and I'll make sure that all those links. So I've got all your links, Laura. If there's any new ones, do send them to me and I'll make sure that I add them. Seth, if there's anything you need me to add, and I believe I have everything as well for you, Dr. Northup.
Beautiful.
So anything that we want to share just before I stop the recording?
One thing Laura said yesterday, we're in the season of Taurus, or not quite yet. I think we're still in Aries.
The North Node being in Taurus, right?
Yeah, okay, North Node is in Taurus, and that is about grounded stuff. Taurus is about, you know, on the earth, things that are yummy and good and prosperity and beauty. Taurus is such a beautiful thing to have the North Node in there. It's about getting real on the earth with the things of the earth. So that was important information for me, Laura. Thank you.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Wonderful.
Okay. Good.
All
Oh,
right.
so wonderful to be with you guys.
Yeah,
Great.
I'm gonna stop recording right now. Okay.
I
everybody?
gotta run.